This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
Hey, this is Brian Peña. I always join the Vito podcast, the best podcast in the United States.
This week's Two Bad Hombres podcast is brought to you by The Athletic, premium coverage for passionate Detroit sports fans. Two Bad Hombres listeners can get 20% off the first year of an annual subscription by visiting theathletic.com/DSP.
I was trying to get it how I live. I want them dead presidents. I want to pull up, head spin, get it, get fly. I got 6 jobs, I don't get tired. I don't get tired. I don't get tired. Get it, get fly.
And we are still not tired on this week's episode of Two Bad Hombres, and I'm your host, Vito Ranimo Churko, alongside my usual sidekick and broadcast partner in fun. That is the Doc from Doc and Jock, John Charles Macaroon. John, it is Super Bowl week. We are rapidly awaiting, the kickoff of Super Bowl 52, and we have a lot to be excited about because of that, but also because of a Detroit Pistons monstrous trade, a blockbuster trade, definitely, huh?
Vito, welcome to the weekend. Always enjoy our conversations. What a week we've had podcasting. My goodness, starting with Tigers Talk. We had a great opportunity to talk to Emily Walden. I love doing the videos each and every week. It's been a fun time, and I'm greatly looking forward to this podcast because anytime you get a chance to talk about Michigan and Michigan State football and National Signing Day coming up next week, we got a great guest, Alan Trieu, coming up later on in this podcast. I'm definitely curious to get his insights regarding how it's going to shake out for Michigan and Michigan State next week on Signing Day, I believe on Wednesday. Yes, Sunday is the Super Bowl. I'll get a sense of what you're going to do. I probably decided to actually this year, for the first time, go out to the bar to watch the Super Bowl, but we'll talk about that in the second half of the podcast. But yes, Vito, the Pistons, finally, I guess we're going to debate it, you and I, because the news broke earlier this week. It broke on Monday, late Monday, that the Pistons pushed their chips in the middle. What have Adam and I, throughout the course of this podcast, been screaming and yelling about? Pistons, go out there, get a superstar. Go out there, get a superstar so that asses can go to the seats. We should have had a caveat, Vito. Go out there, get a superstar. Not Blake Griffin. Not Blake Griffin. That's a superstar light. You know how much money that man is making? My goodness, Vito. When that news broke, the first thing I thought about was, dude could potentially get injured flying into Detroit. He's injury prone. That's a risk. That's why he was made available. Everybody that's talked about it is debating it. People are looking back and forth going, man, what's the odds that this is going to be successful? I feel like the risk far outweighs the reward. There are reports that the Pistons made an effort by offering Charlotte Tobias Harris and a first-round pick for Kemba Walker straight up, and they declined it. So the Pistons have tried to go out there and improve the team. Obviously, they're mired in a losing streak prior to making the trade, and Stan Van Gundy came out and said, look, even if we were winning 10 games, when a Blake Griffin is out there, you go make the move. He pushed the chips in the middle. I feel like, though, when all the cards are exposed, he's going to come up with the losing hand. It's just, Blake Griffin's not a superstar. He's a good player. Yes, he's a top 15 player, but the problem is he's not consistent. He's never been past the second round. How are you going to roll with this guy as the guy in Detroit? You're going to have a big three. Across the league, it's big three, right, Vito? Big three. You're going to have a big three of Reggie Jackson, Andre Drummond, and Blake Griffin? Vito, come on, man. Did they really do this? Are we dreaming? They got Blake Griffin?
You know what? It still gets me excited on a Monday morning. A phrase that I love to throw out there, but it does. He's injury prone, but he's still a star when he plays. When he gets out there on the floor, whether or not you believe he consistently plays enough, which really isn't the case for Blake Griffin. But he gets you excited, might get some asses into the seats at Little Caesars Arena. Now, I'm not expecting a drastic change in attendance, but I see an uptick in attendance coming because you have a star now who technically is not, hugely in the prime of his career, and he has a big contract, expensive contract for a guy that doesn't play on a nightly basis. So the Clippers, I get from their vantage point that they wanted to deal him. I get why they did. They never got to the conference finals with the guy, never even got close. He's injury prone. They weren't winning with them this year nearly enough, so I get why you deal him, but for the Pistons' sake and for Stan Van Gundy's sake, when his job might be on the hot seat, I get this deal because of the fact that He had to do something. He had to make a move. Now, is it the best move? I'm not saying it's the best move the Pistons could have made, and maybe they should have went into full-on tank mode. I get that aspect, too, because you want to build for the future, get that superstar through the draft. But you're getting a star player in Blake Griffin, and guess what? You can't sign these guys. These guys aren't coming to Motown via free agency. Remember that as well, Doc.
Vito, I'm going to keep this succinct, and I'm going to throw it back to you. This show is called Two Bad Hombres. No, Blake Griffin's not a bad hombre. Blake Griffin's a sad hombre, and it's something where I do believe that this is going to fail. When you ask me, okay, what can you go upon when you rate a player? All I can do is go upon the past. The Clippers made Blake Griffin available because they're rebuilding. They fleeced the Detroit Pistons. Look, I like the fact they went out and made a move. The Pistons realized, look, this mix is terrible, okay? But there is something called what did you offer to get Blake Griffin, okay? You offered Tobias Harris, Avery Bradley, and the number 1 pick, okay? So that's the thing that people are upset about. Look, people can basically come to love Blake Griffin if he performs, if he stays healthy. But you're asking many people to say, did the Pistons overdo it? Did they offer too much? And the answer is yes, because of the fact that most NBA teams build through the draft. The problem is Stan Van Gundy can't build through the draft. And so Blake Griffin's a sad hombre, my friend. And unfortunately, many people have messaged us at Detroit Podcast, and they've said this very thing. The Pistons got fleeced. They gave up way too much for this guy, and his numbers are huge. He's still in the first year of a massive deal where he's going to be 31, making about $37 million a year. Dude's game isn't built for longevity. Dude's been injured. Dude's had surgery. I mean, he's missed a lot of time. He's only played in 80 games, I think, 3 times in his entire career. You're offering this man like he's Steph Curry. And the other part, and I said I was going to throw it back to you, but I lied. I'm just so upset. I'm just going to keep talking. Vito, how is everybody else doing it? Who are you copying? People have asked Stan Van, look, you put big money into bigs. Big money into bigs. What's going on across the rest of the league, Vito? They're putting big money into the point guard, into the shooters, the guys that shoot the 3. The Pistons are like, well, we can't get those guys. They won't come here, so we're going to build differently. We're going to make the league adjust to us. No, just try and copy the league. If you can't do it, then there is a formula and a path to go get those guys that can shoot, that can be the superstar. It's called fucking tanking, Vito. They're so stubborn that they don't realize that what they've done is basically mortgage the future to get a guy where there's a huge risk where in a tough playoff series where there's bumping and grinding and big defenders are going to be trying to, work Blake Griffin and get him off his game. If he goes down, it's done. It's done. You can't, you're tying up so much money into 3 dudes that they're going to have to basically find supreme role players. And do you trust Stan Van to go out there and get those supreme role players? No. So I just would have done this. You recognize this team is garbage. Just roll with it. Now you could have had a team. Yes,
but he had to save face. He had to save his job for next year. His job might have been on the line, on the hot seat extremely. We don't know what Tom Gores truly thinks of him all the way out there in L.A., not showing up to any Pistons games.
Vito, I'll ask you this, and I'll put it this way. Do you think that Stan Van should die on the sword by getting Blake Griffin? Or I would have died on the sword saying, look, we're going to bomb out the organization the next 2 years, and we're going to draft much better. I'm sorry that we're looking to build through the draft. We've got 2 key pieces, Stanley Johnson and Luke Kennard, and we'll build through the draft. You got 2 pieces. You got Andre Drummond. You can roll with those 3,
okay, so
and
you
then
just
draft.
You just defeated your point. You have Luke Kennard. You like Luke Kennard. You like Stanley Johnson. I don't know about Stanley Johnson. I like Luke Kennard. He's going to play the 2 now. Stanley Johnson's going to play the 3. Opens up PT for them. So they're getting younger subsequently in that way. Getting rid of Avery Bradley, who was an expiring contract. Wasn't going to come back to Motown. His play has gone down since he returned from injury. So think about that with Avery. The only player you really got rid of is Tobias Harris, Doc, and the first runner. The first runner and Tobias Harris. You got rid of 2 tradable assets for Blake Griffin, a star in the league. Still a star, Doc, okay? I don't care what you think. Still a star when healthy.
Okay. What are the odds you think he's going to finish out the season without missing more than 3 games? Over, under, 50%. Big vetoes.
I'm going to say over 50% that he misses more than 3. I'm going to say he misses 5 or 6, so I'm going to take the over definitely.
Exactly. That's the thing you're worried about. Is this dude doesn't play. Okay, he's got talent, yes, but now he's shooting the ball further from the rim. It's harder when you get older to keep attacking the rim. And the big question is, how are you going to play with Andre Drummond? 2 bigs? Come on.
But Blake Griffin does come out from the rim. You just noted yourself. He can shoot the 3 ball. Now, used to never be able to do that. So back in the day, him as a rookie, second, third year player, would not have meshed whatsoever, him and Andre Drummond. But Andre Drummond is really a better prototype of a DeAndre Jordan big that Blake Griffin played alongside already in LA with the Clippers. So remember that, Griffin has this experience playing with another big of the magnitude and mold of Andre Drummond. So I think they can mesh, and that's a dominant front court. When both are healthy, think about how dominant that front court could be. And Blake Griffin still has some athleticism and can shoot the three ball now. Okay. He's more explosive almost, or more of an asset, more of a valuable asset now than he used to be. So think of that. He might not be aging as rapidly as you and others think when they talk about Blake Griffin.
If you follow us and support us on our Twitter page at Detroit Podcast, the hits keep on coming. I photoshopped the picture, and I said, as I'm looking here on the wall, it says, not bad boys, right? You know what I nicknamed Andre Drummond and Blake Griffin? Sad boys.
Well, I'll tell you this much. Drummond and Griffin have a bad rep for not being tough enough, especially Andre Drummond, and for not bringing the energy every single night. Griffin, though, I believe, and I believe it's been displayed, on full display throughout his career leading up to this point, that he exerts a full amount of energy every single night. When he's out there, maybe he's not attacking the rim as often, but he's still going to attack the rim. Bring that athleticism, bring that explosiveness, and he's willing to put his body out there to lay it all on the line for the benefit of the team. I mean, he's a team player in that regard, and I think he really is not of the same mold, cut from the same cloth as Andre Drummond, a guy that doesn't exert a great amount of energy from night to night. So Drummond, you can critique and criticize and say he doesn't bring that energy, the energy that you need on a nightly basis out of a supposed superstar player, at least a max contract player on your squad. But Griffin, I believe, exerts a full level of energy every single night. So you got to give him that much. Now, maybe he's not totally tough enough to, cut the bill, right? To cut the mustard seed and to fit the bill in Motown because of Motown's nature and tradition and history of being this tough town and having a tough team win. Detroit, the Pistons have won. But I still think Griffin, you're not giving him enough of the benefit of the doubt. I think he deserves more of that from you and others that are criticizing this trade right now, Doc.
I got to ask you this. Do you think, because Tom Gores, which is really surprising, on Monday night going into Tuesday, he threw out a tweet really late in the evening in Detroit. It was earlier in California, but he threw out a tweet and he said, "We are committed to winning." This move kind of reeks of, I need asses in the seats. Do you agree with Tom Gores that this was a basketball-related move, or do you see potentially that he made this move to put asses in the seats because nobody's going to Little Caesars Arena? You got to have a marquee name. I know that they're not going to come out and say that this is a kind of attention-grabbing move to put asses in the seats, but this is what it screams of to me. It screams of, I need an ass in the seat. I need some dollars in the coffers.
A big ass in the seat, baby.
And this is what it looks like. And so I feel like the Pistons look desperate. And I know that everybody's screaming, get a superstar. We need a reason to go down. But is Blake Griffin going to dunk enough to bring asses in the seats? I feel like, Vito, the easiest way to put asses in the seats is to win. Really. And so...
so now it defeats your point once again. You accepted tanking. You want the Pistons to fully embrace it. And for Stan Van, who's going into the final year of his contract next season to embrace tanking, which means he's going to lose his job if he accepted tanking. And now you're getting an L.A. boy, man, let's say, in Blake Griffin, who has the flair for the dramatic, is a stand-up comedian. Have you seen his acts? I mean, he's a stand-up comedian, too. He's all about L.A., the bright lights. Blake Griffin brings that to Motown now. You know, Tom Gores loves that. He's an L.A. dude himself. Remember that as well, Doc.
Vito, is it true, the rumors that you like to Snapchat Kendall Jenner?
I saw that, and absolutely I do.
Really?
Blake Griffin does, too. Now, is that Blake Griffin's chick? That's why you brought that up, right? I think they're together. They were together. Who knows?
When the news broke, a lot of people were like, oh, great, Kendall Jenner will be all around Little Caesars. I can't keep up with who the Kardashians are.
Do you even know who she is? I bet you don't even know who she is.
Oh, of course I do. She's a Kardashian.
Have you seen her? What she looks like?
Of course.
Oh, she's a beautiful woman. That's why you know what she looks like.
I know who she is.
Yeah. Too young for you, by the way, Dad. Come on,
I
man.
value her entrepreneur spirit, and I feel like
absolutely, that's
she's
what
taken the legacy of her mother and taken the advice and set off a great modeling career. I feel like I respect her more for her brain than her looks, Vito.
Absolutely, I know that.
And for you to insinuate that I would know who she is based upon her looks really is insulting to a sophisticated modern man like me. Really? You think that I'm just into somebody for their looks or their appearance? Really? Is that all you think of me?
I was absolutely insinuating
Are you
that.
calling me
Correct.
Are you calling me a pig?
I'm calling you a pig.
Okay. Well, I'm going to tell you this. I have seen all her sisters without their clothes on. I will say
there
that.
You go. At least you're admitting it. I
appreciate
appreciate you admitting it. Coming clean here on the airwaves, over the airwaves on Two Bad Hombres. I appreciate that out of you, Doc.
But it's not because of my sexual attraction. It's because I'm now into photography and art.
Yes,
feel
you have
like
a camera now, so now you can just use that excuse all the time, huh?
I am an artiste, and
Ooh,
I like
you are now, huh?
the female body is very beautiful,
Yes.
and photograph without clothes is really freeing and liberating. And in this day and age, I do appreciate the work of the Kardashians and what they put out on Instagram and things like that, among a myriad of other things they like to do. But but it might,
that's true.
But Vito, honestly, do you think it's a basketball move or a move to put asses in the seats?
More PR, beneficial PR-wise. But, like I said, you got to give this a chance. The Pistons will with Stan Van. Stan Van has a longer leash now to prove his worth as team president, as head coach, because he just acquired Blake, and you need a full season of meshing together next season for the Pistons to prove that they can win with Blake Griffin and Andre Drummond together in the front court, or that they can't win. So it gives Stan Van another year. So I really believe it is something to do with PR. It really does have something to deal with that. Also, though, Stan Van is kind of getting a longer leash as a result of this deal. And getting a guy that I believe Tom Gores said to Stan Van, or that Stan Van knew Tom Gores would be all about, because Blake Griffin, once again, is from L.A., is an L.A. dude with this lifestyle, brings the bright lights and that lifestyle with them to Motown. And Tom Gores, a man that, always wears these shirts with his chest showing. I mean, this guy is all about the bright lights, all about being Mr. Hollywood. And now he's bringing in really a player of that mold who is Mr. Hollywood, can give off that vibe and lives that kind of life. I think Tom Gores is loving it, and once again, it gives Stan Van another year. Is it the perfect basketball move to enhance the quality of the product on the floor night to night? Maybe. Maybe not. And you know what? For the rest of this season, they still might not make the playoffs. Remember that as well. There's no guarantee they get into the playoffs now because they have Blake Griffin all of a sudden. Because look at their guard play, what it's going to become now. When Reggie Jackson gets back, okay, you have a point guard, but you're losing Avery Bradley and the scoring of Tobias Harris. So you're losing a lot of scoring there and a lot of backcourt and what can be productive backcourt play and perimeter play. You're losing that by getting Blake, but you're upgrading the front court, and now you just got to see what comes to fruition as a result of this deal on whether or not the Pistons can turn it around and start winning consistently. And once again, it's not even totally about winning this year, making the playoffs. I believe, even though I believe they should make the playoffs, having Blake Griffin, and it would be a PR nightmare almost if they don't while having Blake. But next year's more of the vital season for Stan Van Gundy and company to make the postseason at this point, because you got to give the Pistons time as a unit to mesh and to come together with Blake Griffin to show their worth and what they can do, well, as a unified body and as a fully cohesive unit.
All right, Vito. I appreciate your optimism. I think it's fair. I think it's one of the reasons why Tom Gores and the Pistons greenlighted this move to pay that money, because it's an investment, and sometimes you got to do what you got to do. It's just when the news broke, it's just that's not the superstar I want. I actually want.
But who can you get? If you want a superstar now, you got to tank and lose a lot. Stan Van Gundy loses his job.
Yep.
That's the thing. So if you're Stan Van, you're telling me right now, you know you'll lose your job. There's almost a guarantee he loses his job if he tanks. Would you do it? Come on.
See, I probably would have did it 3 years ago when he first got here. That's the problem.
It's too late, though. But it's too late in the game for him. He had to put all his chips into the middle of the table and deal for Blake Griffin. Not a superstar anymore. Maybe never was. And I don't think he ever was, but he's still a star. Brings that star status, that flair for the dramatic, the highlight dunk. He brings all of that to Motown. Stan Van Gundy is going to have to love that now for a while here. And I think Griffin has a chance to save his job if everything comes together and works out. But there's a lot of critics, aren't there? Including yourself, about this not working out.
Yeah, I'm nervous because of the fact that the Clippers are now rebuilding, and I hope they don't rebuild with Lawrence Frank, who used to be the head coach here of the Pistons, on the back of the Pistons. I hate feeling like you get worked. You know what I mean? And Tobias Harris, Avery Bradley, they're decent players. They're above average. They're not superstars. But if you play your cards right and you use that number one pick that the Pistons offer you, and you get a good guy, that's going to stink. And that's the biggest problem, is that nobody likes the feeling of feeling like you could have gotten a better player than the guys you got. And across the board, Stan Van Gundy's drafts have been really kind of soft at this point. And when you look at who's out there that's not on the Pistons, it just seems like in the last couple years, there's better players than Allenson, Kennard, and Stanley Johnson that you could have had. Not significantly better, but better nonetheless.
Will Ellenson ever even play?
Yeah, That's the thing is like, the highest pick that Stan Van's had is number 8, and he took Stanley Johnson. And it's
who hasn't turned out to be anything of high value yet either.
No.
But now Luke Kennard, people love him right now. He's getting more PT subsequently from this deal.
Got to make those shots.
Stanley, got to make those shots now.
And they got to play defense. Stanley Johnson. The question now is who's going to play defense on this
Well,
team?
can Kennard play D? Stanley Johnson was going to be a great two-way player. Remember that, like an Avery Bradley, an even better scorer perhaps too. He has more length as well in the perimeter. So we got to see. They got to prove their worth. And if they do, guess what? Stan Van Gundy might end up looking like a genius, even though nobody is thinking that will happen at this point.
All right, Bad Hombre, let's go to commercial break. We'll take our first time out. We'll come back. Great guest lined up. Who is it?
Alan Trieu of 24/7 Sports.
Vito, I want to tell you about our host site, Podomatic. When Adam and I first started this project, we were looking for a great place to host all of our recorded audio. And thank goodness we found Podomatic. At this point in time, Vito, we've recorded 800 to 900 weekly podcasts, and we've only used one host site. If you're looking to start a brand new project, you like what we're doing, you're seeing all the videos, all the fun we're having here at the Detroit Sports Podcast Network, and you say to yourself, look, I think I can do that. I can get a microphone. I can get a computer. I can do some recording. Definitely check out a great host site, Podomatic.com.
Yeah, we coming now.
And back here on the Detroit Sports Podcast Network, and now joining me is Alan Trieu of 24/7 Sports. Alan, how are you doing?
Hey, doing great. Thanks for having me.
So how exciting is National Signing Day to you?
It's exciting for a number of reasons. First and foremost, it means my busy season's done. So I get to kind of clear off my plate a little bit. But it's also exciting because it's what we work up to, for years and years. That's what these kids are working towards, being able to sign on that day. It's what I've worked towards. It's getting to know all these kids, writing about them, seeing them go from a lot of the time, young guys with aspirations to, seeing the completion of that on National Signing Day. So it's a mix of a whole bunch of different reasons to be excited for me, but it really is the Super Bowl. If you're in the recruiting industry, that's the Super Bowl of your season is National Signing Day.
And it might be better than the actual Super Bowl this year, too, in many ways. But anyways, glad to have you on. Once again, Alan Trieu of 24/7 Sports, and you cover Midwest football recruiting for 24/7. And with that being said, you know all about Michigan and Michigan State's football recruiting classes. I know U of M is ranked number 15. MSU is ranked number 29. Give us a little bit of details on both of their recruiting classes and what we should know about each recruiting class, too.
Well, and I think starting off with Michigan, neither school is completely done yet. So as we move down the stretch here, there's still the possibility that each of them could add some new commitments. But I think Michigan, has finished in the top 10 the last couple of years. So people have asked me if this is a down recruiting year. I don't think that it is. I think that there may not be a Rashawn Gary or Jabril Peppers 5-star kind of guy in this class, but there's a lot of quality top to bottom. And I also think that they are trusting themselves in their evaluation. You see them taking more guys that were sleepers, under the radar guys that maybe they had at their camp or that they found late. And I think when you have a staff that's been where they've been, they're willing to trust their own eyes and ears on some of these guys. But that doesn't mean there's not quality at the top of the class. Aiden Hutchinson from inside the state was one of the best players at the U.S. Army All-American Bowl. Cameron McGrone was a kid who was elevated to a 5-star late in the process by 24/7 Sports. So he's, had the kind of year that would allow him to make that kind of a move. So I think it's a good class for Michigan, and one where now in Jim Harbaugh's had a few years at Michigan. You don't have to find immediate impact anymore. I think a lot of these guys are going to be guys that they can develop that have a lot of upside. And then with Michigan State, they've always been a consistent team. And I think that this year, more than ever, they've recruited their kind of guys. They've recruited kids who are high character kids from really strong high school programs. And they've gone back to a lot of the areas that they've had success in. Obviously, they like the state of Michigan. It's their home state. So you got a lot of kids from Michigan. They also do really well in Ohio. They have a lot of ties there. So you have quite a few Ohio kids. And then you have guys who are versatile. Ladarius Jefferson was the state's Mr. Football as a quarterback. They're going to bring him in as an athlete, probably playing some running back. They have a kid coming in from Ohio named Javez Alexander, who was a high school quarterback that they're going to play at receiver. And they've had a lot of success with that kind of a move before. So I think I call this a very classic Mark D'Antonio kind of class.
How about Kalen Gervin, too, out of Cass Tech? Now, he's a guy that I'm excited about. I know MSU is as well. How good of a player do you think he ends up becoming for Sparty?
Well, I think he's, what I call, first of all, is that he has a very high floor, meaning at worst case scenario, I think he's going to be a good player. He's a good, solid football player. He's not a boom or bust kind of guy. Some guys have very low floors. I would say he's a high floor guy. He's played a lot of football. He's played a lot of football against really good competition. And that's both at Cass Tech, where they're going deep into the playoffs every year. So he sees the best teams in the state. And then he has gone out to all kinds of national camps and 7-on-7s and tested himself against the best players in the country. So he's enrolled early right now, and nothing he's going to see in spring practice is going to shock him, because he's used to that level, seeing that level of athlete across from him. He's very well schooled, has always been a kid who's technically ahead of the game. And then I think, where the upside comes in is that he's a track kid. He was a 4.41 laser guy at the opening regional last year, can really, really run. So I think you mix that in with the technique that he has, and I think that he has a chance to be a really good player and a guy who possibly sees the field early, because he is enrolling early and he is ready to compete at that level.
Let's keep it in the city of Detroit now, Alan. And 4-star Detroit East English center Tyrone Sampson is still undecided. And I know there was interest from MSU at one point. As you know, Sampson was committed to Syracuse as well at one point. Decommitted, back on the open market, is expected to sign on National Signing Day. Where do you expect him to land? And could it be in East Lansing?
So that's the million-dollar question right now, is where is Tyrone Sampson going to end up? I would say at this point, it's probably not going to be East Lansing. They've not extended an offer, and he doesn't have a visit set up there yet. So unless something changes there, likely not going to be Michigan State. I think he has a visit set up for Mississippi State this weekend. So it could be an MSU, but not Michigan State. It could be Mississippi State. He's supposed to visit Nebraska the last weekend of the process. I don't know if that's still going to happen or not yet. And I think there's still the possibility that some other schools will jump in on him. Ty's an outstanding player, an Army All-American, and you just don't have a lot of those guys still available at this point in the process. So I would not rule out a school that we aren't talking about for Tyrone coming in late in the process still and stealing them. And I know the in-state MAC schools are still pursuing him. Western Michigan is still pursuing him. So I think there's a lot of different ways that Ty can go. I think right now he's one of the hardest guys in the country to predict where he's going to end up.
And Alan, as you know, the MSU, Michigan State University sexual assault scandal has rocked the nation. It specifically pertains to the MSU football and basketball programs, too. It looks really bad for Michigan State right now. And as a recruiting expert, how much do you think that impacts how well MSU can recruit? And not only this recruiting class, I know it's almost finished, but moving forward as a football program, does it affect how they can recruit and who they can get to come to East Lansing?
I got been asked that a lot in the last little bit here. And I just think it's hard to predict right now, because there's still so much left to determine. We don't know what's going to happen. We've only really just heard from Mark D'Antonio about it last week. And until we see if there's any real change there, in terms of coaches, assistants, in terms of more administration, in terms of what, if anything, is actually going to come of it legally, some of the allegations that have been made, I think it's hard to predict what will happen until some of that dust settles. For the moment, in talking to recruits, I think some of them just kind of want to wait and see what happens. Others say they still like Michigan State. And there are a few that I think it's affected that whether or not they'll consider Michigan State. But I think until we settle this thing out, I think I'll have a better answer for you in maybe a month, 2-3 months down the line when we see where this thing really goes. It certainly has the potential to greatly affect their recruiting. But I think when you look back at some of the schools that have had, some different negative things happen, a lot of the schools have been able to rebound. Penn State, if we had been sitting here a couple of years ago and we said Penn State was going to have a top 5 class in the country right now, you'd probably think I was crazy. But they've done a great job of recruiting through some negativity, and I think Michigan State can do the same. So until we see what happens, until we let things kind of run their course, I think it's tough to predict. In
so many words, Alan, the dust has to settle first with Michigan State.
Yes. And I think that's where a lot of recruits are at, is like, until that dust settles, it's hard for me to make a decision on that.
Yeah, it's hard to give that long-term outlook right now. I know the position that you're in, you know a lot, but I mean, really nobody can gauge what's going to happen in Michigan State with the programs, the head coaches, and the rest of the university, as it's a university-wide problem, as we know at this time. And moving on to a lighter subject now, and to a big game this upcoming Sunday, Super Bowl 52. I think you'll be in front of your TV watching this game. I think a lot of people will too in this nation and all over the world. And with all of that being said, who do you got and why in Super Bowl 52?
Well, I'm a Steelers fan, and it hurt me that they're not in this. And I don't like the New England Patriots, but I think anybody would be a fool to bet against them in a big game like this. With what they've just done, this season as well. They always play through adversity. They always are well prepared, and I think the Eagles have done the Eagles to me have done a great job of getting to where they are. But they were not the favorite going in. They've been the underdog in every game. And I think that their Cinderella tale may be coming to an end here, just at the quarterback position, not taking away anything from what Nick Foles has done recently, but Tom Brady versus Nick Foles. I think I got to side with Tom Brady in that one.
Tom Terrific, probably going to be hoisting Super Bowl trophy number 6 at the end of Sunday. I think so, big time. And Tom Brady being a Michigan guy, playing at U of M at least. And, I wanted to bring up, I just thought of it, Wilton Speight. Now, there has been a rumor or two floating around that he could end up back at U of M. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, we'll see. That's my only thing. We'll see. I know he says that it depends on what's going to happen with Shea Patterson. And what I'm hearing is that there's still a good chance that Shea Patterson will get to play this year. So kind of similar to what we said about MSU, until I guess the dust settles, we won't know. But I think, that's a pretty crowded quarterback room there at Michigan. You're going to have Shea Patterson in there, whether he's eligible or not. You got Brandon Peters coming back. You have Dylan McCaffrey, who redshirted last year, that's going to be there. You've got some other guys that have enrolled early. Joe Milton's their recruit from this year that's enrolling early. So, in me, just from the outside looking in, it seems like it would be in Wilton's best interest to maybe, try to go play elsewhere, although I certainly admire the competitive spirit of him saying, I'd be willing to come back and give it another go at the University of Michigan.
I think he has greener pastures somewhere else, football-wise specifically, too. And I don't see him ending up back in Ann Arbor. I'll just make that prediction right now. And I think a lot of people are thinking that about Wilton Speight. And yeah, it seems like with the crowded quarterback room right now that he's better off going somewhere else anyways. And I believe that was the intention, behind his decision when he did say he wanted to transfer, that was the reason why that he wanted to, because of that crowded and really extremely crowded quarterback room. I'll let you go with that. Great stuff from you. Best of luck with National Signing Day coming up, and don't get too excited.
Sounds good. I appreciate you having me, and look forward to talking to you again down the line.
All right, man. Thank you much, and have a great day.
Interesting interview that you did with Alan. My goodness. I think that is the prevailing question that he's probably going to be asked in the coming weeks regarding Michigan State, is that, hey, how are recruits going to be looking at this thing? We had Garrick Sherman on, and he provided a different perspective. Garrick Sherman was there at Michigan State when the news broke regarding the allegations with Keith Appling and Adrian Payne. And so he described his time there as drama-filled. He didn't want to sit in meetings where there were so many distractions. And he said that in his time there would be multiple hour meetings about marijuana, about the distractions, about changing your life and making better choices. And he said, I didn't come here for that. And he said he came to Michigan State not to engage in those type of behaviors, and he felt like his time was ruined at Michigan State because he was forced to partake in these meetings for things that he had nothing to do with. And so a guy like that looks at Michigan State and he goes, wow, my time there was drama-filled, and he left. And so now, flip it forward to 2018, there's a huge story breaking regarding Michigan State. We've talked about it all week on the network. And now you look at these recruits, I'd be fascinated to see what these recruits potentially would be thinking about Michigan State right now, especially ahead of National Signing Day. It was an interesting interview, Vito. Good get.
Now, really quick, you like that question then? Are you giving me a high five on the question about the MSU scandal and how it affects these recruits and their decision-making?
It was a good question.
Thank you, Doc. I appreciate the love there. And you know what? Really quick, I don't want to go into a diatribe about MSU, and I know you don't want me to. So really, really quick, I think D'Antonio has to go. Has to be fired. Izzo, I'm not as sure about, but the thing is, okay, so I get this. I'm going to bring this up too.
Did you
read
the story I sent you?
I saw about it being what? A attack against Michigan State and the
Let's
coaches.
wait for all the facts. How can you make such a definitive judgment before?
I'm going to do it. I don't care. It doesn't look good. It's not journalistically ethical. I know that. Hey, I'm a journalist, so I know the repercussions, perhaps. But I'm going to say you got to fire D'Antonio.
Why?
What is it? 16 separate sexual assault incidents? Something like that, man. Isn't that of high magnitude enough to say D'Antonio knew about something, knew about too much and didn't report this stuff, didn't settle this stuff? And now I also take his back, and I take Izzo's back in this way. You know what? If this stuff never went to court, right, legally, nothing ever happened, right, to these players, then these coaches can move on unscathed. So remember that too.
Okay, Vito, let's parse it this way. And here's the thing that I think you're jumping to conclusions. The thing that you're upset about is, has Mark D'Antonio cheapened the program by bringing in guys that have questionable character? Now, that's different than asking, hey, if these events happen, what did you do about it? Those questions still have to be unearthed, because he came out on Friday last week and he dropped the mic and he said, look, I have reported everything. I have let go of individuals that maybe have done some things that they weren't supposed to do. So that's a different question than asking, hey, should programs bring in guys with questionable character? And he's done that. And so when you talk about winning in football, winning in basketball, at the biggest levels, unfortunately, Vito, you can't bury your head in the sand. You have to go out there and maybe go out there and have your hopes on guys that may eventually burn you and do some things that they're not supposed to. But the real question is, there has to be policies in place at Michigan State that are locked down, and really across the country, that are locked down. When there's an allegation, we will suspend. We will wait until the legal process is due. We will not have universities address this anymore. What we'll do is, if there's an allegation, we'll go right to the police. We're not going to hide anything. We're not going to have university police do investigations. They have to create a universal standard, which is, hey, a player of ours is alleged to have done something. He'll be suspended. We'll wait for due process, and then we'll try our best to absolutely figure out the truth. And if the player's not convicted or not charged in a case, he's reinstated, and we keep it moving. And they just have to find a lockdown system. But what you're doing really is kind of surprising, in that you're kind of formulating the judgment, but what you're really saying is, I'm not happy that Michigan State has taken on so many problem guys. And I can respect that, but you can't right now say that Mark D'Antonio and Tom Izzo have been proven to have covered up stuff.
The only thing I'll say in response to that, I know you're Mr. Sparty, you have the Sparty bias, and I believe some of your opinion here is based upon that, a little bit.
Vito,
right?
you're tongue-tied because I hit you with the truth.
It was the truth to a certain extent.
Bam!
It's also, though, it's not even about bringing in questionable players with questionable work ethics or character
different.
issues off the field, off the court. It's also about, and really more for me, is that if you let all this stuff go on your watch, like
Vito, you can't,
double-digit sexual assault incidents.
You can't control it. How do you
can't control
it?
You just said you can't control it?
No.
You got to control it a little bit. Now, don't say you can't. Don't be so definitive, like you told me about being so definitive about D'Antonio being ousted for all this crap.
Okay, Vito.
Don't be so definitive. So I'm going to say, because it could be curtailed. It shouldn't be to this degree as it is right now that we have found out about.
But Vito, you're saying an allegation equates to actually convictions?
No, and that's the thing. I brought up that, though. I brought up the contrarian viewpoint. I brought up that, hey, legally, if nothing actually went to court and no legal repercussions were brought and presented themselves, so legally, if you're all clear, you're all good to go. Technically, as a university, as a program. So I get that point of view too, and I brought it up right there. I mean, that's fair enough.
You can come with your opinion, but make sure you're coming.
Oh, you heard my opinion.
Yeah, with the right discussion. And so if you say to me, look, I want a cleaner program at Michigan State, I could agree with that. You can have that debate. Me and Adam have sometimes joked about it, saying, look, sometimes you got to go out there and get some bad dudes if you want to compete, and you got to go out and get those questionable guys because Alabama's doing it. All the other teams.
And Michigan State has to do it to win because they're not Michigan. They're not going to bring in the 4 or 5-star talent. I totally understand that, too.
So the question
I want to ask you, it's been too much.
Now, the question I want to ask you is, you've seen these reports, you've seen the outside the lines, you've seen what the response has been. Do you feel like ESPN did a hit job on Michigan State? Do you feel like that they tried to tie in what was going on with Dr. Nasser to Tom Izzo and play out a bigger narrative than what the facts actually said? Because, it's been talked about that the facts yet, as of this month, have not shown that Tom Izzo and Mark D'Antonio covered up anything. What they're trying to, establish is that, things weren't reported properly, that there was this massive cover-up. It's being investigated, which it should be. If that is the truth, then obviously Michigan State will face the repercussions. They should be fired. But right now, the stance that has been proven, and Travis Walton came out and said things, and Adrian Payne has come out and said things.
They've all denied it, but they're going to. They have to deny it. But there's no other choice for them. Come on.
But the thing you have to ask yourself is, what do you do with players who have not been convicted but have been alleged? What do you do?
Well, those players were never dismissed.
Right.
They were allowed to stay on, and it looks bad. Ethically speaking, it looks bad. But does that mean those coaches get dismissed? No. I'm just bringing up that the multitude of cases brought to the attention now, and they're all sexual abuse and assault allegations. I get it. It's all allegations. And if nothing was brought to court, these players weren't prosecuted, right? No charges were brought to them. They weren't prosecuted. They're not in jail. Keith Appling is, but for other stuff, right? But still, on a large scale, yes, nothing ever happened to these players legally. So as a university, as an athletic program, you don't have to dismiss the player. I just would say, ethically speaking, it looks bad for MSU to have all of this on your account, on your watch, as head coach, as a program, as a university. It looks really darn bad PR-wise. And the university as a whole has a PR nightmare. We know that, but it has trickled down to the basketball and football coaches largely. And D'Antonio, that press conference, I didn't like it. Come on. You knew, I'm just saying, he knew something, man. He covered up something. It wasn't reported properly, and it looks bad. I mean, I think somebody has to pay for it outside of the administration, the board of trustees, the president already resigned. I know A.D. Marcalis already resigned. I just think that D'Antonio, if more stuff comes out, if they can prove the facts from the report of ESPN done by Outside the Lines on ESPN, well, you know these coaches are going to go. But I know it's about proving all of that to be factual still, too, but I believe in the report. Outside the Lines. When is Outside the Lines a journalistically ethical program and production going to put out lies just to smear, right, to make a university and the athletic programs there at the university look bad? OTL and ESPN are not going to do that. That's all I'm going to say.
Okay. All right, Vito, you answered the question. That's what you believe. You believe that ESPN was right journalistically. They did not send out false narratives. They did not tie the wrong things together. And so I disagree a little bit. I do believe that potentially there could be a little bit of some exaggeration. There's a little bit of some tying into things that are two different things. Dr. Larry Nassar is not what's going on with the athletic department. And what Dr. Larry Nassar's situation is different than what's going on with the basketball and football programs. And we still, I believe, are at the forefront of what's going on in totality. And so I'm just still taking the wait-and-see approach regarding what these investigators, when they go out and investigate what happened, who knew what when we get those answers, then we can judge. And I do think that there's a strong likelihood that there's going to be some improprieties.
Oh, yeah, more's going to come out.
Yeah, more's going to come out, but we'll see how it went down, and I do actually want to see the complete report about how they went about their investigation and what came out. And it's two different questions, but I do believe that the question does have to be asked, what kind of players are you bringing in, and are you willing to ruin your reputation? Kind of now what Michigan State's going through, because when you get bad dudes that come to your program, you get bad results, and sometimes the sacrifice maybe just isn't worth it. Winning is important, but maybe not at the cost of ruining your reputation and ruining the reputation of the university and really putting a lot of people on your program in jeopardy. So it's interesting debate and one that we're going to probably keep having throughout the course of 2018. Now, segueing into the Super Bowl, what are you going to be doing this Sunday, tomorrow, when the Philadelphia Eagles take on the New England Patriots, who I believe are the favorite?
Well, it's not you believe they're the favorite. They are.
Yeah, they are. Factually,
yeah. Factually accurate. We want to bring up facts now here. I want to be a journalist again.
Yeah.
The facts are that the Patriots are the favorite, as they should be, obviously, right, with Tom Terrific. And I believe, there's not much to it for me. I believe they're going to be hoisting Super Bowl Lombardi Trophy number 6.
Good game, you think?
No, I already spoke about that. I think JT is the biggest entertainment of that game on Sunday.
Blowout, huh?
Could be, I think, 41-14, 41-21, something like that.
Wow.
Yeah.
You're calling for a big time blowout.
You're calling for a close game?
I think it's going to be a close game. I got to go in 31-28 Patriots. Both teams, really similar numbers, both 13-3, both average about 28 points a game. I think it'll be a very fun contest, back and forth, fourth quarter game, and Tom Terrific will bring the New England Patriots back. They'll probably be down 28-21. He'll come back with a touchdown. It'll be late, and the Eagles will have a chance. They won't do it. They won't get it. And then the game will end when the Patriots go right up the field. They get the ball late, and they'll kick the game-winning field goal. It'll be 31-28 Patriots. I do think that it'll be a good game. I do believe that it'll be fun. For the first time, I think I'm going to watch the game at a bar. I'll be comfortable at the Tap and Barrel in Shelby Township. Matt graciously invited me.
I wonder why.
Well, I got a lot of things to offer, and me and my father-in-law will go out, have some cocktails, some shots, and watch the game. And my first time at a bar, I know it might be busy, it might not. We'll see what happens. I hope it's really packed there. Go check out the Tap and Barrel, but I'm enjoying it, and we'll see what happens. But I don't know if I'm going to stay for the whole game. I might do, because the game is going to be paced so long, it's going to be about, I think, a 6:30 kickoff. I'll probably stay till about 9:30. If the game's a blowout and it's out of hand, then I'll leave early and go home. But I'm hoping it's an entertaining game. But I do wish, Vito, that the Monday after the Super Bowl was a national holiday because
we need that. Well,
Yes.
according to you and what you're about to do with your father-in-law, you said you're going to go watch the game with your father-in-law.
Yep.
You said you're going to drink cocktails and shots. You're going to be drinking that much alcohol? I mean,
No,
how much are you
no.
going to be drinking? You
No.
you brought up cocktails, plural.
Yeah.
Shots, plural. How many
No.
are you going to have on a Sunday when you have to work the next day? I know you're a working man. Come on.
Well, actually, I only have the podcast to do at 2
Oh,
o'clock.
so you're cop-out. So you're saying
I took
it would
the
be all
breakfast.
right if you were hungover Monday.
Maybe I'll
Pretty
be
much,
hungover
right?
recording the podcast. Hungover Doc, huh?
There you go. Really cool. Motor City Sports Rant, huh?
Yeah, maybe I'll call you up, just haphazardly, be like, Vito, what up? My head's still spinning. Maybe the videos then will be
That would be really good.
Right?
Maybe too good in so many words.
What's been your favorite Super Bowl of all time? You have one that just sticks out that you was like, dang, this was the bomb-ass game. I feel like the last 2 or 3 have been really
last
good.
year's probably could be called the best of all time for
was
anybody that
awesome.
watched it.
Yeah, it was
now,
fun.
I would say the first time that the Giants beat the Patriots, though, and Michael Strahan and that pass rushing, ferocious D-line, I would say because of the fact it was a huge upset, and I picked the Giants. Nobody else did. I picked the underdog. I was rooting for the underdog New York Football Giants. So that first time the Giants actually beat the Patriots, when the Patriots were undefeated, remember, during the regular season, they couldn't be stopped. Nobody was picking the Giants at all, right? Remember that?
Yeah.
And they were big favorites, the Pats, too. So for me, that Super Bowl, way back in the day now at this point, when I was a young lad. How about you? What's your favorite Super Bowl of all time?
I've really enjoyed the Super Bowls in the last 10 years, but yeah, the New England Patriots have been a predominant team. But for me, I really enjoyed, and people will be shocked to hear this, I enjoyed the Denver Broncos' latest Super Bowl win. When they won...
Even though Peyton Manning was garbage at that point, couldn't even feel his hands,
It
supposedly.
was a defensive effort. Everybody and their mama thought that the Panthers, with that prolific offense with Cam Newton, was going to destroy Denver. And it really was a true offense versus defensive game. And it was really a makeup for the Denver Broncos because of the fact that, they had in previous years not done well in the playoffs. They got to the Super Bowl, I believe, against a team, and they got destroyed, I think, by Seattle.
Destroyed by the Seahawks.
Yeah, so...
And the Legion of Boom.
They came back, they regrouped, and they built a prolific defense with Von Miller. And so
DeMarcus Ware, a lot of good defensive playmakers.
And people, I remember on this podcast, we were kind of debating back and forth, but I just kept having that notion. Everybody was like, no, it's the Panthers, dude. It's the Panthers. I said, no, because I do believe in defense wins championships. I kept saying it on the air, and I kept saying, I just got this feeling. And it was nice because then I got to go on a couple different podcasts and say, look, I told everybody I kind of had a feeling it's going to be Denver.
You love telling people that you were right.
Tell it like it is, brother. That's what I do. That's what the DOC brings to the table. I tell it like it is, and if it's wrong, I just don't tell it. Yeah.
There you go. I love that logic. Look at you. Look at you. I love that theory, man. Only you would have that theory.
And I think that's a good spot for us to end. I think we both got New England winning. We hope everybody enjoys their Super Bowl. I think it's a great motto, Vito. Tell it like it is, and if it's wrong, just don't tell it.
Don't own up to it. Don't be accountable for it. Oh, very good lesson to teach everybody out there. Really quick, Cam Newton was a regular season MVP in that Super Bowl, too. Mm-hmm. And then the Patriots have always been close in their Super Bowl victories. It's come down to one touchdown, one field goal, very close contest. That's why I think more and more this game ends up being a blowout, too. And Steven Gostkowski, I believe, is the all-time scoring/points leader for the Patriots in franchise history. I didn't think he had been kicking that long, but he's a great kicker, and maybe if it's close, he probably makes the game-winning kick, but I think it's a blowout because every other Super Bowl involving the Patriots has been close in the past, Doc.
Always enjoy imparting words of wisdom to my man, Vito. Always enjoy the last couple hours of recording. Awesome stuff, sir.
Doc, I appreciate your words of wisdom every single week on Two Bad Hombres, and I will sign off for this week's edition with that very note.
Telling it like it is since 2013 on the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
Adios.
It's